A mother gone, leaving an irreplaceable void. But nearly 30 years later, William receives the most unexpected gift from her, a diary filled with her innermost thoughts, fears, and profound love. Those pages reveal to him and Kate that the truth about Diana has never been fully told. Caught between royal pressures and public expectations, they face a choice: protect their mother's honor, or continue living in a story carefully orchestrated by others. A March morning at Kensington Palace carried the crisp chill of London's spring. Gentle breezes swept through the garden, where the rose bushes Diana once cherished bloomed quietly, as if holding on to a trace of warmth from the woman who was gone. Inside the palace, the serene atmosphere was broken by the hurried footsteps of the butler, Mr. Henry, as he entered Prince William's study. William had just wrapped up a lengthy meeting with advisors about his charitable foundation. He sat at an oak desk, his gaze drifting to the window, where faint rays of sunlight pierced the morning mist. His perfectly tailored navy suit did little to hide the exhaustion on his face. Fine lines at the corners of his eyes spoke to the weight of his royal responsibilities. Sir Henry said, his voice low and cautious. "A package has just arrived. No sender is listed, but it's addressed to you." He placed a small parcel on the desk, his gloved hands trembling slightly as if he sensed something unusual. William frowned, his eyes shifting to the package. It was wrapped in simple brown craft paper tied with a white silk ribbon. No postmark, no royal seal, just a single line of handwritten text in soft blue ink. "For William, from Mother. The time has come." His heart seemed to stop for a moment. "From Mother," he repeated, his voice hoarse, as if the words couldn't possibly be real. Diana, his mother, had left this world nearly 3 decades ago. Was this a prank, a tabloid stunt, or worse, a malicious scheme by those who never stopped digging into the royal family's past? "Has it been checked?" William asked, his eyes fixed on the parcel. "Yes, sir. It's safe." "Just a personal item," Henry replied, his voice trailing off, as if he wasn't entirely sure of his own words. William reached out his fingers, brushing the silk ribbon. A strange feeling stirred within him, part curiosity, part dread. He untied the ribbon, peeled back the craft paper, and revealed a layer of pristine white tissue. When the final layer fell away, he froze. On the desk lay a pale turquoise Hermès scarf adorned with delicate butterfly patterns. That scarf, he remembered it vividly, was one of his mother's favorites. Diana used to wear it on summer days when she'd take him and Harry for walks in the park, her eyes still bright with the simple joy of being with her sons. The faint scent of rose perfume, her signature fragrance, lingered faintly, as if she were still there. Inside the scarf was an old leather diary, its brown cover worn at the edges, secured with a thin leather cord. William's hands trembled as he opened the first page. A familiar script appeared, Diana's soft slanting handwriting: "To my beloved sons, William and Harry. If this day comes, know that I am always with you." He fell silent, his breathing heavy. Memories of his mother flooded back, her warm embraces, her gentle voice, and the pain of watching the royal spotlight consume her. Was this real, or just an illusion of the past? The sound of soft footsteps broke his reverie. Kate entered, her white sweater hugging her slender frame. Her brown hair fell loosely and her blue eyes sparkled with concern. She had been in the garden with George, Charlotte, and Louis, her cheeks still flushed from the cold. "Will, are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft but tinged with worry as she noticed his expression. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was warm, a steady anchor amidst the storm of emotions swirling within him. William didn't answer immediately. He slid the diary toward her, his eyes heavy with meaning. Kate leaned down, reading the first page. Her lips trembled and she grasped his hand, squeezing tightly. In that moment, words were unnecessary. Their eyes met, carrying distant memories, unanswered questions, and an unspoken vow to face whatever lay ahead together. Night fell over Kensington Palace, but the lights in the drawing room remained on. William and Kate sat side by side on the sofa, the diary resting between them like a living entity, holding both past and future. Its yellowed pages, scented with old ink and leather, seemed to lock away Diana's secrets preserved by time. Kate carefully turned each page, her eyes moving slowly, as if afraid to miss something vital. William sat beside her, his hand propping his chin, his gaze clouded with sorrow. He didn't dare read, not out of fear, but because he knew those words would drag him back to the most painful days of his life. The diary wasn't written chronologically. It was a mosaic of Diana's soul, fragmented thoughts, fears, dreams, and wishes. She wrote during sleepless nights when the glamour of the people's princess was merely a mask hiding her loneliness. I fear that one day they'll erase me from royal history. One passage read the trembling script betraying Diana's struggle to hold back tears. They want me to be just a name, a statue, a story edited to suit them. But I am William and Harry's mother. I don't want my sons to grow up in a world where truth is distorted. Kate paused, looking up at William. Do you want me to keep reading? She asked gently, as if the question might touch an old wound. William took a deep breath and nodded. Read on, he said, his voice low but resolute. She wrote this for us. We need to know. Kate turned to the next page. A passage mentioned Camilla, whom Diana called a cold shadow. I don't hate her, Diana wrote, but I fear what she represents. A system where love is sacrificed for power, where truth is buried beneath false smiles. I pray William finds a woman who loves truth more than fame. Kate faltered, her heart tightening. She glanced at William, and in that moment she realized Diana's prayer had come true. She, Kate, was that woman. But with that came a heavy responsibility to protect Diana's legacy, not just for William, but for the next generation. The final page held a brief but powerful message. If I'm gone, don't let them rewrite my story. Let the truth live on, no matter how painful. Kate closed the diary, her hands trembling. She turned to William, seeing him bow his head, his broad shoulders quivering. Will, she whispered, placing a hand on his cheek. William looked up, his eyes red, but his gaze unwavering. She wrote this so we wouldn't forget, he said, his voice hoarse. And now she sent it to us. We have to do something, Kate. We can't let her be forgotten. Kate nodded, her eyes shining with determination. We'll find the truth, she said, no matter where it leads. Clarence's house on a late March afternoon carried the somber air of lingering winter. Gray light from London's sky filtered through tall windows, casting a dim glow over the drawing room. Thick Persian rugs and oil paintings on the walls couldn't dispel the chill seeping into the air. Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, sat in a red velvet armchair, her hands clasped tightly, her manicured nails grazing her palms. Her lips pursed, her eyes sharp. She fought to suppress the wave of unease rising in her chest. Before her stood Edward Langley, her longtime media advisor, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and ever-watchful eyes. He had just delivered news that froze the room. Diana's diary had surfaced, delivered to Kensington Palace, straight into William's hands. No trace, no clues, only a cryptic note. For William, from Mother. The time has come. The diary. Camilla began, her voice low and deliberate, each word carefully measured. What's in it, Edward? Edward cleared his throat, his gaze averted. We don't know exactly, ma'am. But if it's truly from Princess Diana, written in her final years, it could contain sensitive matters. Her thoughts on the royal family, on everyone. He hesitated, avoiding Camilla's name, but both understood the implication. Camilla rose, pacing slowly to the window. She looked out at the garden where camellias bloomed, but her mind drifted to the past. In 1997, when news of Diana's death swept the world, the public turned against her. Every glance, every article, every whisper carried blame, as if she were the cause of the people's princess's suffering. It took decades of meticulously planned media campaigns and carefully staged public appearances to craft an image of Camilla as calm and respectable, though public acceptance remained grudging at best. Now this diary threatened to unravel everything. If Diana's words exposed the truth, or worse, her version of the truth, about the painful years of her marriage, about the cold shadow Diana had alluded to, Camilla's efforts would crumble. Her place beside Charles, the stability of the monarchy, all could collapse. She turned back, her eyes sharp as a blade. Who sent it? Her voice dropped, carrying an unspoken threat. Edward shook his head. We haven't found out, ma'am. The package had no postmark, no sender information. It could be an individual acting alone or a carefully orchestrated plan. Camilla clenched her hands, her nails digging into her palms. A forgotten memory flashed in her mind like a missing puzzle piece. Years ago, after Diana's death, one of her trusted maids, Mary Ashford, abruptly resigned. Camilla hadn't thought much of it, assuming Mary was shaken by the loss. But now with the diary's appearance, a dark premonition stirred. Mary. Could it be her Mary Ashford? Camilla murmured almost to herself. Edward frowned, puzzled. Look into Mary Ashford, she ordered, her voice icy. She was Diana's maid. If she's alive, I want to know where she is, what she's doing, and why this diary surfaced now. Edward nodded, jotting a note. But Camilla wasn't done. She knew mere investigation wouldn't suffice. The diary, whatever it held, was a ticking time bomb. If it reached the press, or worse, if William and Kate chose to make it public, the consequences would be catastrophic. That evening, she called a private meeting in a small room on Clarence House's lower floor, free of cameras or extraneous staff. Only three were present: Camilla, Edward, and Clara Morton, a strategist known as the Cleaner, for her ability to quietly resolve royal scandals. Under the dim glow of a crystal chandelier, Camilla sat at the head of the table, her hands flat on the polished ebony surface. The diary must be destroyed, she said, her voice unwavering. Immediately. Clara, a woman in her 50s with tightly pinned blonde hair and hawk-like eyes, tilted her head. That's not simple, ma'am. The diary is with William. If we try to take it by force, the public will turn against us. And William, he's not easily swayed. Camilla's lips tightened, her eyes flashing with anger. Then find another way. Bribe, threaten, whatever it takes. I don't care how you do it, but I want that diary gone before it does any damage. Edward hesitated before speaking. Ma'am, if I may suggest, perhaps we should approach William directly. Convince him that publicizing the diary will harm the monarchy, even his mother's legacy. William always puts family first. Clara nodded, her gaze pensive. All right, we'll try that approach. Morning at Kensington Palace still carried March's biting chill. But in William and Kate's cozy study, the air buzzed with determination. Light from a brass desk lamp illuminated the old leather diary placed at the center of the oak table. Its yellowed pages seemed to whisper secrets of the past, waiting to be unveiled. William stood by the window, his gaze distant, fixed on the garden, where Diana's beloved roses bloomed quietly. Kate sat at the table, her hands gently reopening the diary's first page, as if to confirm it wasn't a dream. The day before, they had taken the diary to Dr. Margaret Hensley, a renowned handwriting expert in London. Under the fluorescent lights of her small office, Dr. Hensley meticulously compared the diary's script to archived letters from Diana. The verdict was undeniable: the diary was authentic. No signs of forgery, she said firmly. This handwriting is Princess Diana's, written between 1995 and 1997, based on the ink and paper. The confirmation was both a validation and a burden. William felt his heart tighten at the news. The diary wasn't just a gift from his mother. It was a call to duty he couldn't ignore. Kate, with her sharp instincts and resolve, shifted quickly from emotion to action. We need to find out who sent it, she said the previous night, her eyes alight. They know something, and they want us to know. William nodded, but a memory flickered in his mind. A black and white photograph surfaced: his mother Diana standing in Highgrove's garden, beside a silver-haired woman with kind eyes. That woman had been at his mother's side in her final days, quiet but devoted. Mary Ashford, William whispered, his voice hoarse. Kate looked up, curious. She was Mother's trusted maid. I remember her. She was almost the only one Mother trusted back then. Kate set the diary down, her eyes sparking with resolve. If she's alive, we have to find her. She might be the one who sent it. Or at least she'll know who did. Their investigation began in secret. William and Kate wanted no hint of the diary's existence to reach the press or the royal family until they understood its significance. Kate, with her tact and organizational skills, contacted a trusted private investigator, Richard Baxter, who had handled sensitive royal matters before. Within days, Baxter traced a lead. Mary Ashford, now in her 70s, lived in seclusion in a small village in Cornwall, over 4 hours' drive from London. She resided alone in an old stone cottage, rarely spoke to neighbors, and seemed to have cut ties with the outside world for over 2 decades. William and Kate decided to meet Mary in person. They left London early one morning in a plain black Range Rover without an entourage or royal insignia. Kate sat in the passenger seat, double-checking the address on her phone, while William drove, his eyes focused, but his hands gripping the wheel tightly. "Are you okay?" Kate asked, resting a hand on his arm. William gave a faint smile, but his eyes were heavy. "I just don't know what I'm looking for. The truth, or just another piece of mother I've lost." Kate squeezed his hand gently. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." The village of Polperro in Cornwall appeared like a fairy tale scene, with narrow cobblestone streets, moss-covered slate roofs, and the sound of waves crashing against cliffs. Mary Ashford's cottage sat on the village's edge, a small stone house with a weathered wooden fence and a garden of wildflowers. As William and Kate knocked, their hearts pounded, uncertain of what awaited. The door opened and Mary Ashford stood before them. She was far older than William's memory. Her silver hair tied neatly back, her face lined with wrinkles, but her eyes still shone with a gentle yet resolute light. She looked at William, and for a moment her gaze sparkled, as if seeing Diana herself. "Prince William," she said, her voice trembling, "and Princess Catherine, I thought this day might come." Mary invited them in, leading them to a small parlor where a fire crackled in the hearth. On the table sat an old porcelain teapot, and by the window a small framed photo of Diana gleamed in a silver frame. William's throat tightened at the sight, his mother radiant with a bright smile, her eyes alive, as if she were still here. "I remember you," William said, his voice rough. "You were always with Mother." Mary smiled, but her smile carried sorrow. "Princess Diana was the light of this world, and I promised her I'd protect what she left behind." Kate, with her gentle but sharp demeanor, spoke up. "You sent the diary, didn't you?" "Why now, after all these years?" Mary took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she poured tea. She sat, her gaze drifting to the window, where the Cornish sea roared. "After the princess passed," she began slowly, "I couldn't bear the thought that her story would be twisted. I took the diary along with a few personal items before they could be confiscated or destroyed. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't let her final words fall into unworthy hands." She paused, her eyes distant. "I kept it for 20 years in a wooden box under the floorboards. I thought one day when the time was right, I'd send it to you. But I was afraid the truth would hurt you, harm you, or worse, be distorted again." "What changed?" William asked, his voice low but laden with emotion. Mary met his eyes. "I saw how you and Princess Catherine live, how you protect your mother's legacy, how you raise your children with love and honesty. I knew you were the one who could bring her voice back. And," she hesitated, her voice softening, "I heard there were efforts to rewrite history, to dim what the princess fought for. I couldn't let that happen." Kate leaned forward, her eyes full of empathy. "You risked so much to send the diary. Weren't you afraid?" Mary gave a faint smile. "I'm old, Princess. I have nothing left to lose except my promise to Princess Diana. She once told me, 'Mary, if I'm not here one day, make sure my boys know the truth.' I'm only doing what she asked." William bowed his head, his hands clenched. A wave of emotions surged within him, gratitude, pain, and resolve. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse. "Thank you for not letting Mother be forgotten." Mary nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "Be careful, Prince William. Truth isn't always welcomed, and some will do anything to bury it." As William and Kate left Mary's cottage, the diary carefully wrapped in the Hermès scarf, they knew their journey was just beginning. Meanwhile, at Clarence's house, Camilla grew increasingly restless, and Charles, though silent, began to sense the darkness of the past rising. Clarence's house lay under a heavy silence. Light from crystal chandeliers bathed the family meeting room, reflecting off oak-paneled walls and thick Persian rugs. But the room's opulence couldn't mask the tension choking the air. This was no ordinary royal meeting with formal protocols. It was a silent battle, where sharp words and loaded glances became weapons. William and Kate sat on one side of the long table, facing Charles and Camilla. Diana's diary, still wrapped in the turquoise Hermès scarf, rested in a leather briefcase beside William. He didn't bring it out, but its presence loomed like a shadow, unseen but oppressive. Kate, in an elegant navy knit dress, sat upright, her hands resting lightly on her lap, her eyes calm but piercing. William, in a simple gray suit, maintained a composed exterior, but his hands clenched beneath the table, restraining a storm of emotions. The meeting began with a prolonged silence, as if no one wanted to break the fragile ice. Charles cleared his throat, his voice low but trembling. "William, Kate," he set, his eyes on his son and daughter-in-law. I know about the diary. I won't ask where you got it or why it surfaced. But I beg you for the sake of family peace for the monarchy's stability, hand it over. William felt his blood surge. He looked at his father, a man he'd always tried to respect, but in this moment he saw only weakness. Hand it over, he echoed, his voice low, but edged with sharpness. For what, father, to be locked in a safe or burned to ashes as if mother never wrote those words? Charles bowed his head, his hands trembling on the table. You don't understand, William. Your mother, Diana, was a complex woman. What she wrote in her final years might not be the whole truth. She was in pain, confused. Publicizing the diary will only cause hurt to you, to Harry, to all of us. Kate leaned forward, her voice soft but unwavering. Sir, we don't want to cause hurt. But we can't pretend the diary doesn't exist. Princess Diana wrote it for a reason. She wanted the truth known, not buried. Camilla, silent until now, spoke up. Her voice was ice cold, each word calculated. The truth, Catherine. What do you think the truth is? Emotional scribblings of a woman in crisis? Diana wasn't a saint, and you know it. If you make that diary public, you'll destroy everything she fought for, her image, her legacy, and this monarchy. William gripped Kate's hand under the table, his eyes blazing. You're wrong, he said, his voice low but powerful. My mother didn't fight for silence. She wrote so the truth would be known. And I won't let anyone, not even you, rewrite her story. The room's air thickened. Charles looked at William, his eyes filled with pain and helplessness. He wanted to speak, but the words seemed stuck in his throat. Camilla, unfazed, tilted her head, her eyes narrowing like a hawk eyeing prey. You're a smart man, William, she said, her voice dropping with an implicit threat. But you're playing a dangerous game. Do you think the public will stand by you? They'll tear you apart just like they did your mother. Kate, cutting Camilla off, stood. She didn't raise her voice, but her words' sharpness commanded the room. William isn't against the monarchy, she said, her eyes locked on Camilla. He's against forgetting. Princess Diana spent her life fighting for truth and compassion. If we stay silent, we betray the very values she lived for. Camilla's lips tightened, but she didn't reply. She knew Kate wasn't easily intimidated. The woman before her, with her gentle demeanor and warm smile, carried a will of steel, something Camilla, though loath to admit, always warily respected. Charles raised a hand, his voice almost pleading. Enough! We're a family. We can't let the past divide us. William, Kate, I beg you, reconsider. But William shook his head. He stood, pulling Kate to his side. I've considered, father, he said, his voice resolute, and I choose to stand with mother. The meeting ended in silence, but it was a silence heavy with the weight of a declaration of war. William and Kate left Clarence House hand in hand, the diary still safe in its briefcase. As the heavy wooden door closed behind them, both felt the chasm between royal generations deepen. In the room now, just Charles and Camilla, he turned to his wife, his eyes heavy. Where did we go wrong, Camilla? He whispered, his voice laced with pain. Camilla didn't answer. She only stared out the window where London's darkness swallowed the last light of day. A light drizzle fell on London's streets, veiling the ancient stone buildings in a thin mist. Inside Kensington Palace, William and Kate sat in their private drawing room, the fire's glow dancing on their faces. William rested his chin in his hand, his eyes heavy. We can't keep the diary forever, Kate, he said, his voice low. If we don't act, they'll find a way to take it. Or worse, they'll twist the truth before we can speak. Kate nodded, her hands gently turning a diary page. She had read Diana's words repeatedly, her fears as a mother, the coldness of those who sought to replace her, and her loving yet urgent call for truth. We need someone trustworthy, she said, her eyes alight with resolve. Someone who'll honor your mother and tell this story right. After hours of discussion, they decided to contact Eleanor Brooks, a renowned historian who had written about Diana with deep respect. Eleanor, with her salt and pepper hair and keen eyes, was not just a scholar, but a believer in truth's power. When William and Kate met her at a discreet Notting Hill cafe, far from paparazzi lenses, Eleanor listened to their story with rapt attention. This isn't just a diary, Eleanor said, her voice low, but compelling as she flipped through the pages. It's Diana's voice, a voice the world has tried to silence for too long. If you want to share it, we must do it right. Not emotionally, not sensationally, but as a story of love, loss, and courage. William and Kate agreed. They chose to release a portion of the diary enough to honor Diana's legacy without exposing overly personal details that tabloids could exploit. Eleanor, with a small editorial team, prepared a long feature for a reputable newspaper, including carefully selected diary excerpts. Diana's fears for William and Harry's future, as she felt increasingly isolated in the royal family. The cold, calculated nature of those women who sought to replace her, a clear allusion to Camilla, though unnamed. Diana's final message. My boys, live true to your hearts. Don't let the truth be buried, no matter how painful. The article was published on an early April morning, accompanied by a photo of Diana in a green silk dress, her smile radiant, but her eyes tinged with sadness. Within hours, the public erupted. Major papers from the Times to the Guardian ran in-depth analyses, while online forums buzzed with debates about the diary's meaning. At Clarence House, Camilla read the article with trembling hands. Each of Diana's words cut like a knife, not just for their content, but for their power to rekindle public memories of the people's princess. She canceled a charity event scheduled for that afternoon, locking herself in her study, her eyes dark. Her advisors, Edward and Clara, tried to devise response strategies, but for the first time, Camilla felt her control slipping away. Charles, meanwhile, plunged into a media crisis he hadn't anticipated. He sat in his study, rereading the article, his hands cradling his head. Why, William? He whispered, his voice pained. He didn't blame Diana, he never truly had, but he couldn't fathom why his son chose this path, one that would reopen old wounds and thrust the monarchy into turmoil. Back at Kensington Palace, Kate stood before a mirror, fastening Diana's sapphire earrings. They gleamed under the light, a reminder of the woman who inspired her. She prepared for a brief speech at a Diana memorial event held soon after the article's release. Stepping to the podium with William at her side, her eyes were steadfast, yet warm. Truth isn't a weapon, Kate said, her voice clear and compelling, resonating in the silent hall. Truth is memory, and memory cannot be destroyed. Princess Diana lived for love, compassion, and truth. Today we not only honor her, but pledge to preserve her legacy for generations to come. The crowd applauded, but Kate knew the battle wasn't over. As she and William returned home, they received a message from Eleanor. The article had been shared millions of times, and the public demanded more. But alongside came veiled threats from anonymous sources, warnings that truth could come at too high a cost. William took Kate's hand, his eyes resolute. We've started this, he said, and we'll see it through for Mother. London awoke in chaos. In the days following the diary's publication, the streets around Kensington Palace and Clarence House became focal points of attention. Support for William and Kate grew especially among Diana's admirers. Charities she had championed voiced support, stressing that sharing the diary honored her legacy. A BBC poll showed over 60% of the British public sided with William, believing he was safeguarding his mother's memory. Letters from fans worldwide flooded Kensington Palace, filled with thanks and stories of how Diana had touched their lives. Camilla, meanwhile, grew increasingly isolated. Clarence House's lavish rooms, once the setting for her grand dinner parties, now felt like a gilded prison. Her advisors, Edward and Clara, proposed counter-strategies, a speech to win public favor, a media campaign to overshadow the diary, but Camilla knew such efforts were futile when Diana's name still held such power. She sat before her mirror, staring at her face, wrinkles deeper beneath flawless makeup. I won, Charles, she thought, but I'll never win against her. Camilla's isolation wasn't just external. Even her closest allies began to distance themselves. Clarence House staff whispered behind her back, and minor royals declined her event invitations. A tea she planned to charm the aristocracy was canceled last-minute, citing scheduling conflicts. Though she wouldn't admit it, Camilla felt the chill of rejection enveloping her. Meanwhile, William prepared for a bolder move, a live television interview on ITV. It was his first public discussion of the diary and his reasons for sharing it. In the softly lit studio, William, in a navy suit, appeared both strong and vulnerable. The host, veteran journalist Sarah Langley, questioned him respectfully, but didn't shy from tough topics. Why now, Sir? Sarah asked. Why release the diary after all these years when it could fracture the royal family? William took a deep breath, his eyes meeting the camera, as if addressing the world. I'm not breaking tradition, he said, his voice low but emotional. I just want my mother to not be forgotten as a name on a plaque. My mother, Princess Diana, lived for truth and compassion. The diary is her voice, and I have a duty to let it be heard. William's words touched millions. The interview dominated media, cementing his role as Diana's spiritual heir. But it also widened the royal rift. Charles, watching from his study, felt his heart sink. He wanted to call William to say he understood, but didn't know where to begin. As night fell over London, William and Kate stood by their drawing room window, gazing at the city's twinkling lights. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Truth, though powerful, always carried a cost. But in that moment, hand in hand, they felt a greater strength, the strength of love, memory, and a promise to a woman who changed the world. A year had passed since Diana's diary shook the royal family and reawakened global memories. Spring 2026 brought London gentle sunshine mixed with its signature light drizzle. At the Victoria and Albert Museum, a special exhibition, Diana's Legacy, Love and Truth, drew thousands from around the world. The exhibit was elegantly designed with large photos of Diana, from her embracing children in hospitals to walking across an Angolan minefield, a reminder of the People's Princess's compassionate heart. At the exhibit's heart, under soft chandelier light, Diana's diary rested in a bulletproof glass case. Its yellowed pages, worn leather cover, and pale turquoise Hermès scarf beside it symbolized truth transcending time. Around it, selected diary excerpts were engraved on bronze plaques, Diana's final words echoing, "My boys, live true to your hearts. Don't let the truth be buried, no matter how painful." William and Kate entered the exhibit in simple yet elegant attire. William wore a dark green sweater and chinos, cradling 3-year-old Louis, who gazed curiously with wide eyes. Kate, in a cream silk dress, held Charlotte's hand, the 8-year-old's brown hair gleaming like her mother's. George, 12, walked beside them, his gaze more mature than his years, as if sensing the moment's weight. They came not as prince and princess, but as Diana's family, honoring the woman who shaped their lives. In the crowd, Kate sensed a familiar gaze. She turned, and in a far corner, Mary Ashford stood quiet as a shadow from the past. Older now, her silver hair loose, her face deeply lined, but her eyes still shone with the gentle resolve Kate recalled from Cornwall. Mary wore a simple wool coat, blending into the crowd as if avoiding notice. But her eyes, meeting Kate's, said everything: satisfaction, relief, and a touch of melancholy. Kate nodded subtly, a gesture rich with meaning. Her smile was a wordless thank you for Mary's loyalty, courage, in keeping her promise to Diana. Mary returned a delicate nod, then quietly turned, slipping out of the exhibit. She sought no fame, no recognition. For Mary, knowing Diana's voice resonated in millions of hearts was enough. William, noticing the exchange, placed a hand on Kate's shoulder. "She did it all for Mother," he said, his voice rough. "And for us." Kate squeezed his hand, her eyes shining. "Not just for us," she whispered. "For everyone who ever loved your mother." Outside London's light rain glistened on the streets like tiny jewels. William and Kate stepped out, shielding their children with an umbrella, their eyes mingling in rare peace. The monarchy might still bear cracks, Camilla might linger in Clarence House's shadows, and Charles might wrestle with inner conflicts. But in the hearts of those present that day, Diana's flame burned eternal, a flame of love, courage, and truth that could never be extinguished. As their car rolled through London's rain-glossed streets, William gazed out the window, a faint smile on his lips. "Thank you, Mother," he whispered, as if Diana were still somewhere listening. If you were moved by this story, please like, share, and subscribe to join us in honoring Diana's legacy and uncovering more tales of truth and courage.